It's actually kind of ironic when you think about it. Ethereum's biggest problem? It works. In fact, it works so incredibly well that when millions of people showed up to use it at the exact same time, all expecting this seamless, futuristic financial experience, they fundamentally broke the usability of the network. Technically, the system functioned perfectly, but practically speaking, it became a victim of its own massive popularity. We all remember the pain of peak network congestion, right? Regular users were getting hit with gas fees of $200 just to execute a single basic transaction. It really forced this collective, painful realization that Layer 1 was never actually designed to be a cheap coffee shop. It's essentially a highly secure, decentralized court system. You wouldn't go to the Supreme Court to buy a $3 latte, and you really shouldn't be using Layer 1 for everyday microtransactions either. So welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to translate all of that overwhelming developer jargon into plain English and show you exactly how blockchain is scaling. We're cutting through the messy terminology, helping you avoid the countless scams out there, and breaking down how the future of crypto usage is completely shifting to a brand new execution layer. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the problem with Ethereum. Second, we dive into our magic word, rollups. Third, spotting the fake layer 2s. Fourth, we'll cover bridges, hacks, and risks. And finally, we'll wrap up with your complete layer 2 guide. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the problem with Ethereum and why simply building bigger blocks isn't the answer. You might be wondering, why can't developers just flip a switch to make things faster? Well, it all comes down to the scalability trilemma. Basically, a network can only really master 2 out of 3 traits, being decentralized, secure, and scalable. Bitcoin and Ethereum chose to be heavily decentralized and secure. That means literally anyone can run a node on a cheap laptop in their basement, but the trade-off is the network maxes out at around 15 transactions per second. Solana went a different route, secure and scalable, but it requires massive, expensive data center servers to run nodes, which sacrifices a degree of decentralization. And then you have Visa, which is wildly scalable and secure, but completely centralized as a single corporation. If Ethereum just decided to make its blocks 100 times bigger to get faster, the chain's data would explode to over 100 terabytes a year. Regular people couldn't afford the hard drives, and the whole thing would centralize into corporate server farms overnight. Ethereum absolutely refused to make that trade-off. Moving right along to section 2, rollups. This is the magic word for getting speed plus security. So the absolutely crucial point here is that to get incredible speed without sacrificing that hard-earned security, we need to step out of the courtroom and head over to the schoolyard. The magic word for this is a rollup. Think about 1,000 students frantically trading baseball cards in the schoolyard. The teacher doesn't need to sit there and watch every single individual trade happen, right? They just wait, gather the data, and write the final tally on the chalkboard at the end of the day. That's what a rollup does. It executes thousands of transactions incredibly fast off-chain, mathematically compresses all of that data, and posts it back to the Ethereum mainnet. The Layer 1 smart contract verifies it, meaning you get the blistering speed of the schoolyard, but you keep the ironclad, undeniable security of the teacher. Now, this underlying concept actually branches out into 2 distinct flavors. First up, we have optimistic rollups like Arbitrum and Base. They're called optimistic because they essentially post a massive batch of transactions and basically say, hey, trust me, nobody's lying here. But they leave this 7-day challenge window where anyone can run the data, prove fraud, and slash the sequencer's funds as a penalty. It's incredibly cheap to run, but if you want to withdraw your funds back to mainnet, it takes an agonizing 7 days. Then, on the other side, you have ZK, or zero-knowledge rollups, like ZK Sync and Starknet. These execute transactions and generate a terrifyingly complex mathematical proof upfront. The math literally proves the transactions were correct right out of the gate, so you don't need a challenge window at all. This gives you instant finality, though the tech behind it is a whole lot harder for developers to build. And that brings us to the absolute golden rule of scaling safely: data availability. Because the actual transaction data lives permanently on Layer 1, you are trusting Ethereum's underlying security, not the CEO of some Layer 2 startup. Seriously, if the server running Arbitrum or ZK Zinc were to completely catch fire and vanish tomorrow, you wouldn't lose a single dime. Because the underlying data was safely posted to the main Ethereum chain, anyone can independently reconstruct the state of the network and force a withdrawal. That unshakable guarantee right there, that's exactly why true rollups are the ultimate scaling solution. Which perfectly sets up section 3, spotting the fake L2s, specifically sidechains and validiums. The reality we have to face is that most of these networks are still maturing. We use the L2-beat framework to visualize how they gradually remove their training wheels over time. Stage 2 is the ultimate gold standard here. Now, almost all networks start at stage 0 because the tech is just so incredibly new and experimental. Developers desperately need an emergency kill switch. They retain full control via a multi-signature wallet to change the rules if some catastrophic bug is found. Stage 1 puts severe limits on that power, requiring an elected security council to intervene. But Stage 2, that's the promised land. No training wheels whatsoever. Only the Layer 1 smart contract itself can dictate upgrades through a strict time delay. It's a journey, but it's completely necessary to reach full, trustless independence. Listen closely to this part. If a network doesn't post its data directly to Layer 1, you are trusting a completely separate group of people with your funds, and Ethereum cannot save you. Take a sidechain like Polygon POS, for example. It runs an entirely separate consensus mechanism with its own independent validators. Validium is slightly different. It generates proofs but actively stores the actual transaction data off-chain with a private, trusted committee. And state channels? Those are essentially just peer-to-peer messaging networks. Look, these might offer incredibly cheap fees, which is absolutely fine if you're just tossing around a low-value gaming NFT. But if those separate validators or private committees collude, or if they simply go offline, your funds are permanently frozen. Now, we have to get a little serious for Section 4. Bridges, hacks, and risks. The dark side of scaling. $600 million. Let that number sink in. That is how much was stolen from the Ronin Bridge in 2022 in a highly coordinated attack. This proves exactly why knowing the technical difference between a sidechain and a true rollup can literally save your life savings. Ronin was a sidechain. 5 of its 9 validators were fully compromised by hackers. Because it wasn't in true rollup and didn't inherit Layer 1 data availability and security, the main Ethereum network couldn't do a single thing to step in and stop the theft. The money was just gone. Massive bridge hacks definitely grab all the headlines because bridges hold billions in locked funds, making them the ultimate honeypot. But there are silent, daily risks you need to navigate in this new landscape as well. Imagine trying to make a quick trade, only to find the sequencer, that's the specific server ordering the transactions for the network, has suddenly gone offline. Your funds are perfectly safe on Layer 1, but your daily activity is completely halted. You also have to carefully account for that 7-day liquidity wait period on optimistic rollups if you use the native bridge to withdraw. And please always double-check if those admin keys are still active. They serve as lingering training wheels that could suddenly change the rules of the game at any moment. All right, let's wrap things up with Section 5, your Layer 2 guide to actually living on these networks. Depending on what you actually want to do day-to-day, here is exactly which battle-tested network you should pick. If you want extremely deep liquidity for decentralized finance, Arbitrum 1 is the reigning, battle-tested giant. If you're looking for consumer apps, social platforms, or you just want an incredibly easy fiat on-ramp because it's directly backed by Coinbase, Base is absolutely your destination. For high-speed, low-cost gaming and NFTs, ZK Sync or Immutable X are excellent choices. And if you're a strict purist looking for maximum decentralization and cutting-edge zero-knowledge math, StarkNet and Scroll are heavily leading the charge. When you are finally ready to make the jump, you absolutely have to follow a strict, step-by-step process. Never, ever click a Google ad for a crypto bridge. Always manually navigate to the official site. Connect your wallet, select deposit, and send a tiny $5 test transaction. Yes, I know you're going to have to pay the painful Layer 1 gas fee one last time to make this happen, but bite the bullet, wait the 10 minutes, check your Layer 2 wallet, and experience that immense emotional relief of seeing your test funds arrive safely. Only then should you ever bridge the rest of your actual capital. Here is a vital mindset shift for anyone moving networks. Layer 2 fixes your gas fees. It does not protect you from scams. Phishing links, malicious smart contract approvals, and highly sophisticated wallet drainers, they work exactly the same way over here as they do on Layer 1. Basic wallet hygiene is just as critical. The only real difference is that now getting your entire life savings drained from your wallet only costs you a 10-cent transaction fee instead of $50. You have to stay incredibly vigilant. Layer 2s are no longer just an experimental side plot for developers to tinker with. They are the primary execution layer where the entire global ecosystem is living, trading, and actively building. The technology is finally here, those massive fees are disappearing, and the training wheels are systematically coming off. So armed with all this info, the only question left is, are you going to keep paying exorbitant Layer 1 prices, or are you ready to pack up your wallet, safely cross the bridge, and move into the neighborhood?